And there goes Ashli Babbitt. I'm inside the Capitol, and she is shot and killed, I would say assassinated, by Lieutenant Michael Leroy Byrd, who was hiding around the corner waiting for her. He claims that he gave her verbal warnings, which is a complete load of crap.
You were inside.
I was the closest to him inside of the speaker's hallway where he shot and killed her. I was no farther from me to you, from Michael Byrd, and the barrier, the panes of glass are broken. So if anyone would hear of a potential verbal warning from Michael Byrd, it would have been me or John Sullivan, who was right next to me. And then next thing you know, Ashli Babbitt is shot and killed, and it's kind of an emotional topic for me regarding that. I've never seen anything like that before. I didn't know what happened at first. I saw the gun, and then I hear John Sullivan yell gun, and then I yell gun.
What's going on, everybody? It's Anthony from #BeTheChange. Truth will set you free. And of course, right here, Blunt Force Discussion. We've got a really fun show today. Why? Because I share something with this guest. We both attended the worst day in American history, or so they call it. Speaking of that, I'm wearing one of our t-shirts from the AwakeNotWokeStore.com. We've got the Woke shirt on. You can see AwakeNotWokeStore.com. Use BFD at... Nope, that's the wrong one. Awake at checkout for 15% off. So Awake at checkout, you're going to get that. We've got Woke. We've got one of the new shirts that I think you're really going to like. Most of our people do. It is the None of Us Regrets Getting It. Not a single one of us. You understand that one. You'll see that as well. That all those links will be in the description below. Before we can get the show started, I, of course, got to try to pay the bills best we can. One of our sponsors is the awesome Tony Van Schoik and the company that she works for, Monate. Again, spent some time with her yesterday. Talked about it on another episode. But I've been using their products. I mean, I look pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. The hair is doing a little bit. I've been wearing a hat for a little bit. Let's see how it looks. Not bad. Not bad. They also have some new hair regrowth treatment as well. So if you go to bluntforce.mymonate.com, you'll learn more. All of their products are heavily tested, vegan, cruelty-free, all that good stuff. And honestly, I've not noticed a difference in my hair in 20 years until I started using this. Not talking about thickness or anything like that. It is a little bit thicker. Can't necessarily say that, but it just feels healthier, plain and simple. With that said, I'm excited to start the show. If you want to support us, Joe, I saw you. Patreon.com/Blunt Force Discussion. Again, that's Patreon.com/Blunt Force Discussion. And we're ready to get the show started. All right, on this episode, we've got a independent investigative reporter, journalist, guy that I've seen on some of the shows on The Blaze. He actually bumped into a buddy of mine at one of these weird trans rallies. It's apparently all the rage in Texas specifically, but he does a really great job. He's incredibly blunt in his reporting. He's also pretty dang funny when he's on Sarah's show. It's fun to watch. He's going to be fun on this episode, not just because I'm fun, but because he's also fun. Ladies and gents, Tayler Hansen, what's going on?
Thanks for having me, brother.
It's a pleasure. And now that I know you're 22 years old, I'm a little freaked out about the knowledge level that you possess on a political level. So we kind of started talking, before the interview. How did all this get started for you?
So, it was back in 2019 when, I was first really introduced and thrown into the world of politics. I'll rewind a little bit farther. I graduated high school in 2017, graduated a year early.
Texas?
Utah, actually.
Utah, okay.
And, upon graduating, I didn't really know what to do. I took a few months off, and I actually just played video games competitively. Not a lot of people know that. Competitively, yeah. Made some money, did a lot of wagers doing that. And then I realized, hey, maybe there's something more I can do. And I started, got a day job, started working at a place called BD Medical. And they manufacture, needles, a bunch of other medical devices for, medical needs. Yeah. And, that's when I was exposed to a man named Russ. And this is where it really all began to me,
Sounds creepy.
Yeah, exactly.
So there was a man named Russ.
A man named Russ. But this man named Russ, actually was a very big blessing in my life. I still am in contact with him because he changed my life for the good forever. Okay. And, he was the mechanic on my machine. And I had the worst running machine, always would fault. And, you have to open up the machine door, put adhesive on, whatever, and then if it doesn't work, you got to call the mechanic over. So, my machine would fault every few minutes, and I couldn't fix it. So here comes Russ, talking my ear off and essentially just laying down the red pill after red pill. And, it started with, Bohemian Grove. And I was like, this kind of sounds crazy, bro. Like, you're telling me that these elites get together, once every few years and have these big bonfires in front of effigies. I don't think I believe you. And then, I started doing a little bit of research and just fell down the rabbit hole. Next thing I knew, I was publicly tweeting my ideas and, what I thought I could, benefit and change in the world. And then next thing, I went and covered an Antifa rally. Didn't even know it was, right as George Floyd died. This is in
2020
the very
okay.
beginning of 2020.
Okay.
And I rode a bullet bike, did a lot of stunting on that. So, I was one of those little nerds popping wheelies in the streets and stuff.
Did you say you also played football too, or no?
Yeah.
So
I
you
played
were
high
thinking
school
about having
football.
a football scholarship.
Yes. Yeah. So I was planning on playing at the University of Montana or Southern Utah University. I had a few
Grizz
other
is
options.
Montana,
yeah,
right?
that's where I was born and raised.
Oh,
was,
okay.
Butte, Montana. So
Okay, let's stop talking real quick because I just got back from Montana. My girlfriend rodeos.
beautiful.
So
no better place on earth.
gorgeous. However, Missoula, Montana. What the
Yeah.
What are we in? We 5 minutes in? What the fuck happened to Missoula, Montana?
I don't know, man. I mean, you got BlackRock over there purchasing up properties, driving up property values. So
Yeah.
it's really driving the regular people out and kind of drawing the California crowd in. It's kind of taken over Montana.
It was the
in general.
weirdest. We were in the outskirts. We were in the rodeo life.
Yeah.
So, it's cool. But, and everybody's normal, regular people, and I don't care if they're left or right, they're normal, regular people until you get to Missoula.
Mm-hmm.
And as my girlfriend would famously say, she doesn't think I'm very manly. She's like, you are by far the manliest.
Oh yeah,
man
absolutely.
in
Well, it's a
all
bunch of
Missoula.
hipsters. That's what it is. I mean, it's a college town, and that's the one area I stay away from when I'm in Montana.
It's unfortunate because it's so pretty.
Oh, it's gorgeous, man.
nice.
But Butte, Montana, that's where I'm from. It's like an hour and a half away from Missoula,
Yeah.
just a little mining town. You can go from uptown to downtown Butte in 5 minutes. You're good. That's all I need.
Yeah.
But yeah, Montana's definitely on the downfall.
Yeah.
It's kind of scaring
so
me a little.
And this is what we thought about it is they're so isolated from any real life. So all they see is what's on TV, and
Yep.
they think that black people are being oppressed at this
Yeah.
because they see it on TV. There is zero diversity there whatsoever.
Oh no! Well, so to put it in perspective, I actually hadn't even seen a black person in real life, until I moved away from Montana when I was 8 years old, and I moved, to Utah, and I actually went to a middle school called East Midvale, and it's in a very, diverse area. A lot of Spanish-speaking folk. First day in classes, I remember second grade. I come home bawling because I couldn't understand a single word what these people were saying. I mean, even the teachers were speaking in Spanish. So, no diversity in Montana at all.
No.
But I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous out there.
So I think that was our philosophy. That's probably what happened. Anyways, they don't realize that's not real life. What they
It's like what I say is it's 10 years behind in social trends. So, they will watch the news and they believe, what they see a good majority of them, at least in the bigger cities. But fashion wise, that's what I always notice is they're always 10 years behind. We got the Wranglers a certain year.
Oh, yeah.
They get it 10 years later.
I could see. I could agree with that. Okay, so you were gonna play. You thought about playing football. You had potential scholarships. Didn't end up doing that. You meet this Russ guy.
Yep.
Is that around that same time?
Yeah, right around that same time. So I graduated early, had my scholarships, had everything lined up that I needed, and then I started working this medical manufacturing job, and I got in a motorcycle accident, so I was a little bit messed up, but, still could function, still could play football. And, one day I just started tweeting out my opinions, and it started to gain a lot of traction. And I remember the one day that really changed everything, the one moment for me, is I get a FaceTime call from my buddy in the Marines. He's a Marine Raider, and they were stationed over in Okinawa. There were some Rangers with him, and that's what I wanted to be. I had a option 40 contract written out, been training for years. And in that moment, he FaceTimed me, and he's like, dude, we've been following what you're doing at home, what opinions you have, and, we love it. We think, he's like, I know that it's, your lifelong dream to play college football and then go be a Ranger. He's like, but I don't think you should do it. We think that, we need someone at home, voicing these opinions because we can't. And in that moment, for some reason, years of training, years of, what I wanted to do, my dreams and aspirations, it just went out the door. And next thing I knew, I just kept going more and more public with my political stuff. And I ran across the George Floyd riot. Right after George Floyd died, there was the first riot that I've ever seen or even heard of in Utah.
Mostly peaceful protests.
Yeah, mostly peaceful protests. We call it that.
Yeah.
And, I'm rolling through on my bullet bike, and, all of a sudden there's hundreds of cars and, people honking, people yelling, and there's justice for George Floyd. And, I had seen the video, but I was like, what the hell is going on? I had no real, grasp on, the left or the right, the polarization or anything really much about politics at all. So, naturally I pull in next to the people that look a little bit nicer, and that was the guys in black and yellow. And those guys happen to be the Proud Boys, and I get out and I have my GoPro strapped onto my bike, and, I walk up to them and I'm just like, screw it, I'm going to do some interviews. Why are you guys here? And, they were all very kind to me, just told me straight up, like, we're here to make sure no one gets hurt. It's like, oh, okay, fair enough.
Sounds racist.
Yeah, sounds
Definitely
really racist. Yeah, terrorists.
Yeah.
And then I walked, across the street, or I should say in the middle of the street, because, it was just completely jammed. Yeah. And there was a bunch of just, regular-looking people just protesting, yelling. I was like, what are you guys here for? And they start talking about the killing of George Floyd. This is just the BLM group, just the regular people that saw posts on Facebook, and they're like, yeah, we'll go attend this, in solidarity. And then I decided to walk all the way across the street next to the police station to a bunch of people, all garbed up in black masks and dressed all in all black. And, for some reason, they weren't answering my questions. I was like, this is weird, man. Like, why are they being so standoffish?
And you're 18? No, you'd be 20 at the time.
Yeah, I was
Pretty
about,
close to 20,
yeah, I was
20.
almost 20 at the
Okay.
time. Because I was born in May, so a little bit farther back.
Yeah.
But, and, they just weren't talking to me for some reason. And then one of them told me, yeah, we're from out of town. And I was like, oh, that's kind of weird, you come from out of town and protest. But, little lizard brain at that moment, I wasn't super political. I didn't really understand. And then I ended up, getting surrounded by Antifa, had a gun pulled on me. They pushed my bike over, and because I had a Trump sticker on it. Didn't realize, that was a big deal with this crowd. But they, pushed my bullet bike over and start pouring stuff all over. And that's when I realized, okay, I should probably get out of here. And, I go home. I put out a Twitter thread. It went pretty viral. Jack Posobiec, the usual suspects, retweeted it, put it out. And that's when I was really kind of like thrown into politics. Okay. And, one day I was laying in bed and I just got this idea. I was like, because this is in the midst of, Black Lives Matter, just really painting murals outside of the Trump Tower, in D.C., all over the country. And, I started to do a little more research on FBI crime statistics and along the lines of some other things. And I was like, their whole movement is based on a lie.
Doesn't make sense.
It statistically does not match up. So I was like, I'm going to paint a mural that I think matters, and that mural was Baby Lives Matter. So middle of the night, 2 a.m., I went out to my local abortion clinic in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Sounds funny. Went to my local
yeah,
abortion clinic.
Yeah. and if you know anything about Utah, it's not very open. I mean, it's a fairly conservative state, but my generation seems to kind of be twisting that. It's like my generation is full-blown communist. There's no in between.
Yeah, they took Jack Mormon to the next level.
Basically, yeah. And then,
so are you Mormon also?
No, I used to be Mormon, was baptized Mormon, raised Mormon, and then kind of fell out of the church, and now I'm just, Christian.
Yeah.
And, in that moment, we really just are trying to rewind a little bit.
Sorry.
No, you're good. My brain just had a fart.
In Utah's a little bit more.
Yeah, Utah. So you got the commies, and then you got my parents, that live in Utah. They're pretty conservative, believe in conservative values, kind of anti-abortion. And so I threw this mural on the street, and made a quick little video, got a drone shot, and just talked about the statistics of abortion, and that there's 40 million killed, and it's just really blew up that same day. And for some reason, I had a gut feeling when I painted that mural that it was going to be a big thing. It was going to be a big deal.
Sometimes you get that.
Yeah, it was like
the viral sensation.
Exactly,
Yeah.
And I never have gone viral before.
Yeah.
Really. I didn't know how to go viral. If there was techniques to it, or social media enhancement, anything. Anything of the sorts. And I was a newbie, and so I sliced this rough cut video together talking about abortion and human trafficking specifically. And then, it explodes. Next thing I know, I get a call from Benny Johnson with Turning Point USA.
Oh, shit.
And he's like, I want to turn you into the Scott Presler of Baby Lives Matter. And, in that moment, I was, I quit my car salesman job because I was like, I sold Fords. And I was like, I'm going to make something out of this. I'm going to get into politics.
Yeah.
And, and then I did. I get a call from Benny, and he's like, we're going to start a fundraiser for you. We want you to paint these all over the country. And so that's exactly what I did for the next few months. It was up until about September, I painted around the country.
How have I never seen these? Are you a good painter?
So it was all stencil.
Okay.
It originated with actually taping the roadway. Yeah. And then we realized, hey, there's more effective ways to do this upon, painting the fourth mural and spending more hours taping than actually painting. And it actually started with I sprayed the paint as well instead of, rolling it like you would normally do.
So it's like the lettering?
Yep, those are all my murals.
Got it.
And, it started off just a little bit rough, and then I started to get really, really good at it, started to get a team together. And, next thing I knew...
Your penmanship got a little better.
Yeah, exactly. And, it caused lots of controversy. Don't think I've ever received that many death threats, even with everything else that I've covered to this day. That was a very hot topic, to say the least. But, I'm sitting in bed one day, and I get this video that pops up on my Twitter timeline. Yeah. And it was when Jay Bishop was shot and killed by Michael Renault in Portland, Oregon. And it was around, night 90 of rioting in a row in Portland. And for some reason, it just like lit a fuse inside of me. And I was like, I can't stand to watch this happen anymore.
Yeah.
And so, I had like $300 in my account, booked a plane ticket to Portland, didn't even have a hotel at the time. Got there on night 100 of rioting in a row. And first night out on the ground, I'm dressed in black bloc. I'm one of them. And they start throwing Molotovs at police officers. And one of these Molotovs misses, lights one of their own guys on fire. And then, that's where the famous Feet on Fire clip comes up, with the Footloose song behind it. So
was that your capture?
Yeah, that was my video. And then Trump retweeted it, put it out. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, whoa, I never have had anything like this.
I remember that. Before. Yeah.
Yeah, and that night was crazy, night 100. That's really what like threw me into covering the riots. I had covered a few small-scale ones before. Gone undercover with John Sullivan's group, Insurgents USA, back when I lived in Utah, which, we'll tie back into John later during the Capitol because he definitely plays a role in the room where Ashli was shot.
the Sullivan brothers.
And, man, it just kind of launched me feet first into it. It wasn't even intentional for me. I didn't look at it like as a career or anything. And next thing I know, this Feet on Fire clip goes insanely viral. It's everywhere. Memes are being made from it. I can't go online without seeing it.
Yeah.
And then that same trip, I actually got arrested with Antifa. The next night afterwards, I was dressed in block with them. I was capturing an arrest, and the riot police came running over to me and arrested me because I looked, I looked
like
that.
that.
Yeah. And I get down, and as there's no one around us, I'm telling them who I am. I was like, hey. Because at the time I was loosely working with Andy No and Elijah Schaefer and a few of the other Riot Squad guys. And, that's when they were like, oh, crap, well, you're already in cuffs. So we don't want to, if you're going to be out here the next few nights, we don't want to just give your position away. And we're like, oh, okay, so next thing I know, I'm in the riot van with, all the famous, there's that famous picture that everyone pops up of like all the Antifa mugshots.
Yeah.
That was the night I got arrested. And, my mugshot is taken out of it because I don't fit the part and people know I'm not Antifa.
Yeah.
But the night where you got the trumpet man and all the really ugly burnt people and just everything, that was the night that I ended up spending in the pen with them. It was
Did you learn
weird.
anything?
I did. I learned quite a lot. I learned, about police tactics, about boxing tactics. Literally their funding, how their bail fund works is they had over $1 million basically just recycling because once someone shows up to court, they get it back. And more people are donating, so it was just growing.
Where is this? Who is? I know Kamala talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
Where was this fund magically? Who is running? Better question. Who is running? Who is managing the fund?
Nobody knows. See, that's where the little tricky stuff comes in. Is you got Kamala Harris and Chrissy Teigen and those types saying, hey, you guys can get arrested and we're gonna fund you. You're gonna get out, and that's exactly what they did. And, I can't confirm or deny. I don't have enough information to say, yeah, Kamala or Chrissy Teigen, donated to the specific Rose City Antifa fund. But their fund in Portland, Oregon, had more than all around the country during the 2020 riots. So they were bringing in money. They did not care about getting arrested. They didn't care about any of that, And upon getting released out of this jail, they still don't understand who I am. And I remember they have something called jail support. They'll wait out for you outside of the jail at night. And when you finally get released, they'll cheer, call the cops pigs, the whole 9 yards, go through all of it again. And they'll have cigarettes, food, a little bit of everything, a drink if you want it.
Did they allude to them being funded like?
Oh, they absolutely were funded. Yeah,
you were in there with them, so they probably thought you were one of them.
No, that's exactly what it was.
So they were getting they weren't getting hotel rooms because they were living in the little.
Well, actually, a lot of them didn't even live there. A lot of them were bussed in from out of town, and that's when I was like, okay, there's.
But they were staying in the tents. I think is what. Yeah,
they're staying in the little tent city.
How do they get there? So.
Mm-hmm. Well, and a lot of them were bussed down from Washington. That's what I noticed too, and not D.C., but Seattle, Washington.
Okay,
Washington State. And my cover story was, I came from Montana. I was like, I've never seen anything like this. I was just traveling the country and going to protests and, to protect black lives and to uphold the message. And they just ate it up. Until, 2 nights later, I'm out covering it again, and my mugshot starts to kind of cycle around. And, I see one of they call them Antifa press, right? They're not real press. They don't have credentials. They don't sell it to any big media sources. They're just there, and they can get closer to officers and other people because they're press.
Right.
And that's when I see, one of these Antifa press that I've been actually bumming cigarettes off of the few nights before.
Yeah.
And, he's showing people my mugshot and saying, hey, watch out for this guy. And he shows it to me, and I'm all black blocked up, and I'm like, oh. like I need to get out of here.
Yeah,
So,
shit just got real.
Yeah, I walk a few blocks down.
These people, they weren't fucking around out there. Like there's people getting shot.
Oh,
there's
yeah,
people
they don't
getting
mess
hurt.
around,
Like, that was wasn't the Pitsy Pats Antifa that sometimes we see at other stuff. Like this, that was
and they're
a rough
highly
group.
organized. Yeah, the Antifa organizations in Portland and the BLM organizations is I would say they're probably some of the best organized across the country, other than Washington D.C.
Yeah.
And that's when things really shocked me into reawakening. I was like, oh, in my mind, I was like, I'm sly enough, I'm a smooth talker enough. I got a pack of cigarettes. That's my tactic is you go to the riots. If anyone gets suspicious of you, just offer them a cigarette. They literally don't ask another question again. It's hilarious. And, upon doing that, I go and change after I realize my cover's been blown. And I just changed, to a completely different outfit because I was like, they've probably seen my outfit of the night. Next thing I know, I get a notification on Twitter, and it's a picture of me standing against a pillar. And, it says, Tayler USA is here, and he says he's undercover, lol. And, he's circulating that on left-wing Antifa Twitter, everyone that's local. So
You're a target.
I was like, I was a target, and I was like, okay, I got to leave. And that's when I walk, I'd say about 4 blocks down the road, get out of sight. I think I'm good. I think I'm peachy. And the way that it works, there's a building, the corner, and I'm walking down the sidewalk, and I just remember getting hit. And next thing I know, I'm getting jumped by 4 people in black bloc. And, this was 4 blocks away. It's dead middle of the night, around 1 a.m., and I'm just getting my absolute ass beat. And, I got my vest on, I have protection on, but, I fought back a little bit as much as I could until one of the bigger gentlemen grabbed me from behind and by the vest, by this little strap, that you used to drag people.
Yeah.
And then I knew, I was like, okay, I'm going down to the ground. So I just curled up, took the kicks, took everything. And, if you Google my name, that's one of the first pictures that show up is my face just.
Were you bloody?
Bloody, bruised, big and swollen. My orbital bone was nearly fractured. But that was really, kind of what launched me into covering the 2020 riots. And ever since that, experienced that first week.
Please say it correctly. Mostly peaceful.
Mostly peaceful.
As you got your ass beat.
Justified, of course. Yeah, mostly peaceful. But that's really what launched me into, wanting to cover the riots and having a passion for it.
Yeah.
And next thing I knew, I'm traveling the country, going to riots, going undercover. And I actually spent a lot of my time in Portland, even after getting attacked. I'm on something called their kill list, which that's always fun.
Yeah.
But no, that's, it just kind of became a passion of mine. And I just started traveling the country, wasn't funded at the time, didn't have anything to do with it. And I was just like, I'm just going to cover this because the people deserve to see what's going on, to actually know that, these mostly peaceful protests, there's a little bit more going on behind the scenes.
Yeah. And your viral content was also great timing because as you and I both know, the algorithm shifted drastically in the beginning of 2021. So it really is like growing a following now. I mean, you could have the best content known to mankind. Like you could have the Firefoot, fucking idiot, but it still wouldn't matter.
Well, I mean, I'll use an example. One of my buddies, Kalen, he's now working with Turning Point USA.
Yeah.
And you probably have seen the video, the most recent one of Joe Biden, giving the little girl unsolicited dating advice, being creepy, hunching over. That had over, 5 million views in a day. Usually a video like that would warrant you, probably 30,000, followers.
Yeah.
He's gained like 3,000.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like struggling. You can see
people don't hit the follow button.
Exactly.
Like they'll
and
view
even
it.
if they do, it doesn't matter because it'll just unfollow you in a matter of a few hours.
Yeah.
And especially after the 6th, that's when they really changed the algorithms. That's what I saw. Is, it was impossible to gain followers.
I would say not just after the 6th. I would say after February 1st, right after.
Yeah, I would agree.
And people go, how is that possible? I don't know, but I can tell you.
They flipped a switch.
I mean, I had 25,000 followers on Facebook, and then the ability for it to grow was nil. And then all of a sudden, I got weird viral for no reason. Yep. And it's almost like they throw bones.
Yeah, they're like, here, we'll keep you satisfied just a little bit.
It went to 33,000 because of every video I did, I was getting 100,000 views, 50,000 views, and I was like, oh, nice. And then all of a sudden, it was the weirdest thing. It just stopped. And I mean, they said that I shared something from the FDA that said, we're just going to have to test it out on children. It was an exact quote, and that was one of my penalties for misinformation. And then I got not deplatformed but demonetized. And I was like, they were factual information. It's crazy. I want to start drinking early with you. Let's get
her done.
Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and do shot seat, and then we'll come back to obviously. We'll go back to Baby Lives Matter, and then January 6th. Let's do that. All right, we'll be back with Shot Seat. Don't Get the Shot Seat by Dr. Artis Labs.
Thank you.
No problem. Look at the bedazzled watch you got there, big cat.
It's cheap. It's for shows. It's a $70 watch.
You know, every so often, I always like to say at my girlfriend's, I was like, why do you have to say this? I'm like, I used to make money. So I love watches. But anyways, it is, by the way, it's the shot seat, but it's actually a sip seat.
Of course.
I have to be.
You can't just take all this beautiful whiskey in one
Not
go.
everybody gets it. So first we're going to do a little cheers, top to bottom. Good to have you on the show. May not be the last because you're fun. All right, so this is pretty good, isn't it? Pretty
No, it's
smooth.
delicious.
Yeah, throw that back up there. It's Brothers Bond. We had, what's the name of it, Joe? The one that I really liked, Bond Breaker. Randy Rogers whiskey. Trying to get him to sponsor it. It is honestly, for a sub $40 bottle, the smoothest, most sippable, like non-mixed. I was like, still trying. I mean, he's a conservative, but
You never know. You're gonna get it. You're gonna get it.
From what I hear, the person in charge of marketing may not be as conservative as him.
Yeah, usually how it goes.
Yeah.
Sadly.
Yeah. What are we talking about? Oh, yeah. So, Dr. Artist Labs, this is the Don't Get the Shot seat. There is going to be a link, as always. If you already did get it, you were forced to get it. If you look at the Rumble link in the description, you will see something that will tell you the best way to flush it, get your glutathione up, and essentially replace the crap that was in your body. Otherwise, you have a whole bunch of really good products that he's got. Immune C, for one. I use the prostate. You don't even know what this is about yet, but I use the Prostate Pro. Just helps me to be able to make it to 7 a.m. in the morning without peeing my pants. It's fantastic.
I need that.
What the fuck happens when you get older? And then last but not least, I worked an event this last week. A friend of mine, not feeling great, may have tested positive for the coof, and took this right when I saw this person, and needless to say, overnight gave her a little overdose version. This has not been approved by the FDA, to be clear, YouTube, but she was miraculously better the next day.
Better to taste positive. I mean, better to test positive for the coof instead of the clap, right?
Very well in there. Anywho, but yeah, this has got zinc, NAC, quercetin, and beta, whatever, TMG. It's got a lot of stuff mixed with the C. It's good. That's all I'm going to say, and we'll get started with shot seat. So this is the way the sip sheet. See, it's hard to say that, so I got to say shot seat. This is how it works. I'm going to ask you quick questions. You can have quick answers, or we can get into depth, but either way, it's fun. If it's a hard question, take a little sip. If it's not a hard question, take a little sip.
All right, fair enough.
Okay, first question of the Don't Get the Shot. Oh, I didn't even tell people where to go. Go to thedoctorartistshow.com. There it is. Joe's waiting on me. BFD at checkout for 10% off. We actually have a lot of you guys are actually ordering. That's like the most conversions we've got. So keep going to thedoctorartistshow.com and use BFD for 10%. All right. Question number 1. Do aliens exist?
I would say yes, but not in the aspect of what we think they are. I mean, I would say, aliens aren't these space invaders from, different planets in the galaxy.
Okay.
I would think, they're a mix, because I'm a big Bible guy. I'm not going to say big Bible guy, but I am a Christian. I would think that they are essentially a spawn between a fallen angel and, a human. Okay. Essentially a crossbreed of something that we really can't understand.
Okay, I'll take that. Stick on the interstellar level. I ask this every time. Did we land on the moon?
No, absolutely not.
I already knew where you were going with that
the
one.
moon landing, to me, I mean, it's such a joke, man. I would absolutely love if we, landed on the moon, but in my, hindsight is we were getting our asses just kicked by Russia when it came to the space race, when it came to launching satellites. I mean, every single aspect of the space race, we were losing to Russia. And, all of a sudden, we're the first people to, we're having problems, launching satellites into space at the time. But, yeah, let's just launch a manned aircraft to land on the moon and then to come back to Earth. And we get all these super sweet videos that don't really make a lot of sense. I don't know. I definitely lean towards it being completely fake propaganda machine.
So this is episode 19 or 20, and I started asking this question probably like 10 ago. And I think all of the older crowd, we've all said 10 years ago you asked us this question, it would be pretty much like, of course we landed on the moon. And there's not a single solid yes that we have had at all. Chad's was, he thinks we did, but maybe not when we thought. And then somebody goes, we might have possibly.
My favorite part of the whole, moon landing stuff is that we essentially destroyed all of the technology that we needed to go back, which that doesn't ring right with me, literally.
We don't
at
have
all.
the proper technology. This, I was like saying,
Yeah.
this little phone's got more technology than that whole friggin' room.
Yeah.
They
All of those supercomputers that they use
Yeah.
to operate the alleged spacecraft
Yeah.
to land on the moon is literally in your pocket now.
like,
so,
oh.
but yeah, we lost the technology.
I don't think we've got time to. We would if we could, but no,
It's just not beneficial.
just
right?
not beneficial. Yeah. All right. Let's say. All right. Weirdest shit you have seen in any of the riots you've covered.
Oh, that's a hard one.
I
man.
figured it
That
would
is
be.
a hard one. I mean, I would probably say the weirdest thing I've ever seen was actually during the very first riot that I covered in Salt Lake City, Utah. Before I even realized that I wanted to be a journalist or anything of the sort. And it was a woman. You can find this video. It might be a little hard to find. This woman took her shirt off, took her pants off. And, straight crackhead for the, using the term correctly is because that's exactly what she was. Homeless. She was a crackhead on the streets of Salt Lake City. They have a very big problem there. And they had flipped a police car and it was about to, be lit on fire. And she stands on top of it, pulls her pants down, and actually urinates and poops on top of the police car. And meanwhile, I'm sitting in the middle of the intersection on my bike just watching in awe. Like, this is, I've never seen anything like this before. But I would say that's probably by far one of the weirdest things I've seen during.
Pretty weird, but have you been to San Francisco?
I have.
That's a daily.
Oh, it's absolutely
that's
it's a daily occurrence out there. I mean, same with Portland at this point. When I after I had gotten arrested with Antifa in Portland, I had never been to Oregon, let alone Portland before. And the day that I was arrested, the day afterwards, because I spent all night in jail, they actually took my electronic devices, all my gear, everything. I don't remember what holiday it was. But essentially, everything was closed. You couldn't go to police pickup to grab your stuff. So I spent a whole day without my electronics, without directions, without anything, my hotel keys. In Portland, I've never been there before, and I have no shoelaces in my shoes because I just got out of jail. And I'm walking down the streets of Portland being chased by rabid homeless people that are just tweaking, literally telling me they're going to eat me. So, I've had a few run-ins with homeless people that aren't so well, especially in Portland.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a new question I didn't have before. What do your parents think of all this?
It depends. So I got my dad and my stepmom, I would say, aren't as supportive. They're more just like, they support me, but they're just kind of like, hey, leave it alone. We don't care what people do.
Wait
obviously
a second.
you
Your Mormon
do.
parents got divorced?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
See,
big
they were already
Big
throwing
no.
curveballs.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
But my biological dad and my stepmom definitely just kind of hang back. They don't really have an opinion on it. He just tells me, be nice to people, And, I understand he doesn't really care about any of it. And I still love him to death. But my stepdad and my mother, my stepdad's retired law enforcement. My mom's a travel nurse. And, so he understands. At first, it was kind of hard for him and my mom to accept because I was putting myself in dangerous situations during 2020. And he didn't really understand with Antifa. He thought, I remember having a conversation with him, a really long one. We really got, I've always respected my stepdad down to a T, never raised my voice at him, nothing like that. And we got into, one of our first arguments, even after, I lived with him for years. And, about the work that I did. And he was worried that I was going to put my grandma in danger or, some of my other family members.
They'd dox
you.
Because
they would, dox me. And then instead of, taking it out on me, they would go and hurt my grandmother or something like that, And after he kind of got past that and realized that's not how these kind of people operate, he just fully accepted it, And he says he's proud of me all the time now, and I couldn't be more blessed. I have their full support, even if they don't agree with me. They think I'm crazy because, I'm the person that brings in politics to every dinner discussion, whenever they're in town. It's like, sorry, I just don't know anything else. So
at this
this
point,
is me. Yeah,
when you,
it's my personality.
that's it. I mean, and it is, you can spin every conversation into it. That's kind of why.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you said, what did you say? Something that made me think. Oh, so she's a travel nurse. Mm-hmm. So I'm 99% sure you're unvaccinated.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So is she, and some nurses are waking up or have been awake the whole time. Is she a pro-vaccine?
So she is not vaccinated.
Okay.
At least that I'm aware of. Yeah. And I've told her time and time again, I'm not getting that damn shot.
Yeah.
I'm not getting anything affiliated with it. I don't trust the government. And it's funny because I've slowly what I've seen, especially with my stepdad, is I've slowly almost radicalized them, but in a good way. It's like at first, it was like, oh, hey, you can't trust the government. And they're like, oh, BS, whatever. We don't care as long as we can go home and drink a beer, at the end of the day. And I was like, I respect that. But there's going to be a time where you can't just go home and drink a beer.
And we're getting there.
Yeah, and we're getting there. We're getting very close.
Yeah.
And so,
what do you know? You're 22 years old. You're actually fucking right. Like,
no, yeah, it's getting bad.
There's anybody that pays attention will tell you whether they're 60, 50, 40, 75. This is the
there's not going to be
any.
any more hiding in your bubble anymore here in a few years. That's not going to exist, And I slowly, what really red pilled my stepdad and my mom was January 6th, was my involvement in that. And then them seeing the repercussions afterwards of me literally just doing my job and me being designated a terrorist, the people around me being designated terrorists, and the FBI just essentially going full-fledged Gestapo. And I think that's really what pushed them in the direction of being like, okay, maybe our son is a little bit right on these issues.
Yeah. All right, so that goes to the next one, kind of. How do we start waking people up? I mean, people are waking up generally slowly, but what is the magic pill? What is the magic red pill?
There really is no one thing that does it for everyone, I would say. I wish there was like a universal red pill, but there really isn't. You got to cater, I would say you got to cater the red pills or the white pills, because I don't like black pills. I don't like none of that. You got to cater yeah, exactly. Yeah. You got to cater the white and the red pills towards, an audience that wants to be woken
What's a white pill?
A white pill it's essentially a red pill, but it's a positive red pill. So you got black pill, which is negative. The world is so doomed. I understand what's going on, but we're never going to get out of it. Yeah. And then you got the white pill, which is the exact opposite, phrase of that, which is, I understand what's going on. I understand we have a cabal of elitist pedophiles running this country, but I think we're going to win. And here's why. That's what a white pill is.
That's that's interesting. So we'll talk about Ashli Kelly in a bit. That's my buddy, and he's in the J6 prison. But his big thing is it's always a unity message.
Yep.
So it's like there's a red pill, but then maybe it's like a reddish.
I think you have to cater it to every specific person. If a person wants to wake up, they're going to. But I mean, we live in a day and age where you literally can show people evidence. You have a supercomputer in your pocket at all times. Almost everyone has access to them, and especially the younger generations, which this is really a problem in, is them not paying attention and them just eating up the news, eating up the propaganda machine. And I always tell people, it's like you have a supercomputer in your pocket. You can confirm or deny any form of factual evidence. They don't know how. But that's the thing, is like, I remember before I got into politics, I was working a security job, and
how many different random jobs did you have before?
A lot.
Security. You had the machinery.
I sold cars. I've done a little bit of everything. Yeah. And I actually
it's a 22 years.
Yeah, I met this. She was essentially the leader of the Antifa group in Utah at the time.
Armpit hair. She had to have armpit hair.
Yeah.
100%.
Oh yeah. And it started with, she actually, because I would be overnight. I just had my bullet bike. I'd roll up, and I was actually doing security at a Freemason temple at the time. Which you just stand outside, make sure no one goes in, goes out, blah blah blah. Walk the campus every hour. And I started having her come late night, and I would discuss things and be like, here's the facts. I'd show her the evidence. I'd tell her some outlandish claims. She'd be like, no way, you're lying to me. And at that moment, she viewed me as a fascist, right?
Right.
And then I would show her the evidence, and she's like, what the hell is going on? And eventually, it turned into her literally bringing her commie buddies with her in the middle of the night. We'd be sitting there at 3 a.m. I'm giving them a red pill sermon. And next thing I knew, I'm just red pilling the communists of Utah. So,
Did they go back to their...
They didn't, actually. The good majority of them, I still am in contact with. I talk to a lot of them, and, they're thankful. A lot of them are, full-blown MAGAs at this point.
No way!
It's crazy, the transition that I've seen. So, I like to say that, I am skilled when it comes to exposing the truth to people, and that's really why I got a passion into getting into this industry, because I knew, I could produce work that could really expose people to the truth, that could lead them thinking into a different direction.
Most important is she's shaving her armpits.
Yes.
Fuck yeah.
That's a win, baby.
About. That is a win. Let's see. Well, you kind of answered it. Do you see any hope? I think that's...
Yeah, I absolutely do. I think we are in a very dangerous state. I mean, with especially all the J6 stuff, you got literal political prisoners sitting in prison right now. And, I pray for those guys all the time. God bless them. It's an absolute shame to see what the government has done to these people.
Absolutely insane.
And, they're not going to stop anytime soon. It's only going to get worse. We've seen what they do done at school boards, all along the lines with the FBI, is it's only going to worse, but the only people that can actually make it better are us. So when you view it in a light like that, it is more of a white pill to me. I do have hope. I think that we're on a trajectory of winning. Come 2024 or 2026, I think the tides are really going to start to flip. People are excited for midterms. I understand, but it's a uniparty. They don't care about you. They're toasting to how stupid their constituents are with their $1,000 bottles of wine behind closed doors every night.
Yeah.
So the whole GOP taking the House, I don't think it's a big deal. But we need the presidency.
I don't think it's guaranteed.
No, I don't even think it's guaranteed because they're just fumbling the ball so much at this point.
Right.
But I do think
Herschel Walker.
Yeah. I won't even get into that one. But come 2026, I would say I think that's when you're going to really see the uptrend into America if we do have one, and I think we're going to win.
And let's see if you're ever going to run for politics. I'm going to ask you one final question of Shotzi.
So I've thought about it.
That's not the question. I'm going to see if you've got the skills to do it because I know you've made some friends over at the Blaze. What's your favorite show to be a guest on?
Oh, boy. You're going to get me in trouble,
Let's see how you can spin out of this one.
No, I'll just be honest with you. I would say News and Why because that's, the most consistent show that I am on.
Yeah.
Love Sarah. I love everyone in the Blaze. I love Glenn, love Gaston, love all of them. But just because, for the sake that, she is the person that has me on the most, and it's more geared towards my personality. I don't have to hide my personality. I can make jokes, in a newsy manner. I really like the way that's kind of set up, though, is, I'm just willing to bounce off of people, and it does get into a little bit of dangerous territory when me and John Doyle are on together because, we got this thing going on where it's like he'll say something controversial and then I'm like, oh, got to step it up, so, and then I go in and say something, but definitely Sarah, I got a love for him over there.
All right, that's the winner, and that is the Don't Get the Shot Shotzi by Dr. Artist Labs. We'll be right back. Little top off. All right. So we're gonna let's see. I don't want to talk about obviously all the drag shows going on in this crazy ass place. Specifically Texas.
For some reason,
we are the bastion of freedom. Us in Florida. Let's go January 6th because I think this is what our audience comes from is from Cash Lee Kelly. So do you remember who Cash was?
He
Black guy, white.
He's in prison, right?
He's in prison.
Okay,
he had his first video, the one that went ultra viral, 40 million views, and then got shared by Hodge twins. You name it, Jack posted all of them. He was wearing the tank top, and then did the whole "When are Black Lives Gonna Matter to Black People?"
Yep.
Ex-gangbanger. Him and I became fast friends. Super, I messaged him on social media. Great. It was a really fun story.
I think he's one of the only black people sitting in confined in D.C. One of two. There was a third one, but he was released.
Actually, to Frisco.
Yeah, he's local.
He's also absolutely, completely lying about everything about his life.
Yes.
The Colonel.
Yeah, we won't get into that.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. Cash was like, you got to look him up. I mean, he loved it. He goes,
forged documents, the
everything.
whole 9 yards. Yeah.
He was supposed to be a speaker at an event that I was supposed to go to, and I'm like, that, whatever, I'm not going to get too much into it. I'm like, this guy, the whole story.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Fascinating. So January 6th, and I'm going to lead it with, I am very happy that I attended that day, regardless, even though, and I feel very bad for Cash, and I'm now godfather of his child, and it's a whole shitty situation. What happened? He just finally pled guilty to parading.
Ridiculous.
He's been there 18 months in a jail. He's got, let me give a little backstory. He does have a previous thing that he was being, not convicted, sentenced for back in 2010. He was a gangbanger and he was involved in bad stuff, but he had pretty much gotten it to the point where he would have just got house arrest. It was 10 years later. He cooperated, but not, enough to be okay. And he was not part of the RICO statute. So he should have been fine. I obviously, as one of his closest friends, I listened to the whole court case. They talked all about, you were doing so good. And he also broke parole. Yeah. I was on video chat with him like this with the screen when his lawyer goes, we got permission for you to go to D.C. So they used that. He apparently had a 17-hour round trip to come to Texas and speak and then go back home. None of that was ever discussed. It was complete bullshit. He was set up by a really shitty Indiana lawyer.
Of course.
And it was a piece of crap. And he even didn't want people to send in. I'm sorry.
It's a common reoccurrence when it comes to J6.
I didn't want to go on a tangent, but even when he was getting his sentencing, he suggested people don't send letters. We sent 100 pages worth of letters, and the judge goes, this makes this very difficult. So the fact that he was trying to not have people speak for him, it's like this guy is trying to bury what is a very powerful new, I'm going to say the word black voice, that was 400,000 followers and people were listening. He's got videos of him changing their votes to Trump in the hood. Like, it was a big deal. Anyways, so we went out to D.C., and the reason I'm glad is because even as somebody that is red-pilled or whatever it might be, as somebody that believes the same way that we do, the media manipulation has been so strong that even some of my conservative friends, although they're still conservative, will go, yeah, I mean, I feel like that was bad. You weren't there.
Nope. Well, and you'll notice, too, is the people that speak for the J6 detainees especially, they weren't there. None of them were there. Some of the biggest people with the biggest, op-eds and stuff about January 6th, none of them were there. And, I liked what you said about, the lawyer essentially setting him up, is this is a common reoccurrence that I've seen. I've worked with a lot of the J6 detainees, working on their legal cases, their defense cases, and most specifically with Ashli Babbitt's family, in regards to filing a lawsuit against Michael Byrd, who shot and killed her. And it's the exact same thing, is they are all being set up by bad actors that, are lawyers, but they literally are just forcing these people into a plea deal that isn't in their best interest.
Right. And that's
this
what
is
he finally had
everywhere.
to take. He took a maximum of 6 months on something he went
for
in.
Parading.
For parading.
Which legally parading because they believed in what they were there for. They thought that the election was stolen. It's not even an illegal charge to parade. No. When it's political parading, it is not illegal. There is no precedent where what they did that day was illegal. It was 100% legal. And you had the bad apples, just like you always do at every protest, and that attacked police officers. But a lot of the things, with the police officers being attacked, what I saw that day and all the research that I've done, a lot of it was self-defense. And I have never seen, I come from a family of law enforcement. I have a very high respect for good cops. I love officers. But what I saw that day and what I witnessed, and not just what I witnessed, but what happened to me, I was brutalized by police that day over and over and over again. I had press badges hanging everywhere. I was obviously pressed. And, I'm getting hit with batons. I'm getting shot with pepper ball guns. I'm getting hit with cayenne pepper bombs. It was insane. I've never seen violence like that from police before.
I have to ask this is the mirrored image, because I say the same, and I know that Cash has watched. That's the worst part. These people in the jail. So he's serving he's 18 months into a jail sentence that could be a max of 6 months, and jail is way worse than prison for people that don't know.
Absolutely.
But the question is, and I was there, I was near the front, and they were pepper bombing, and when the crowd was peaceful. You also attended the BLM rallies.
Yep.
Was the police response the same, or did the police response typically start in those rallies when the crowd got rough? Because I will tell you, the crowd was not rough until the bombs.
It was a day and night difference with what I would usually cover at a Black Lives Matter rally that turns into a riot compared to a normal Trump rally that never has turned into a riot until this one occasion. And it was completely different. Is usually the cops will try and restrain, and they literally will not get violent. They will not be physical with any of these protesters because they know it's just going to rile them up. And the only time that they really do get physical, and I wouldn't even call it physical with the BLM protesters, at least in D.C., because they just don't. They'll throw a tear gas canister every once in a while, but, maybe make a physical arrest. But they're not shooting people with, these non-lethal or less than lethal munitions, especially right off the bat. When what I saw, I called January 6th a police riot because I was on that initial barrier where Ray Epps was, where the first breach happened, And
where is Ray Epps? But anyways,
Ray Epps living on his ranch, retired, happy as hell.
Yeah.
But when we first go into it, the barriers come down. I was with a fellow reporter, Savannah Hernandez. She's with TPUSA right now, and we were on something called the Peace Monument. And when that first barrier went down, I realized that they were going in. So I was like, oh, we got to go. Let's run. I hopped over. I remember picking her over, and we just sprint. And then right as we get to the very front, that's when the second barrier goes down. We're right there. We're one of the first ones in. And as we start to fill in, you see people start to move the barriers. And if you're 20 feet behind, even 10 feet behind, you have no idea.
I didn't know.
Because the crowd is so gigantic at this point, you can't see more than 2 feet in front of you. Yeah. It was insane. It's something like I've never seen before. And, all of a sudden, you got all these peaceful protesters because they were all peaceful at that moment. No one was being attacked. You had some verbal disputes with cops, stuff like that. But most of it was, I love you. We support you. We're not like BLM.
The most patriotic day
it was crazy.
I've ever been a part of.
There was a certain energy stirring in the air that I have never felt in my life before. I've been a part of mass rallies, mass riots, a lot of times for being 22 years old.
Yeah.
And, I've never seen or felt anything like that. It was like almost God, and I don't know if it was God or what, but he, reached his hands down and was almost placing them on everyone's shoulders that was there that day. And, almost encouraging them to be patriotic and to, be loud, essentially.
I actually just got chilled because I remember how great that day. Like it's such a disappointment.
I don't think I will ever experience a feeling like I did again that day.
Never. I remember a guy. I'll never forget the quote. God, I keep getting chills. It's funny. I haven't talked to quite like this detail, but I remember a guy, and it was my first vacation with my girlfriend, and it sounds weird. But he was crossing by us. He goes, "This is the greatest day I've ever had, except for the day my son was born." And it was that mentality. And that's why I feel like being there was so important, because I would not have believed it based on what has been
so much different than just watching it on TV or watching the live streams. That's what a lot of people say is, I watched what happened on January 6th. And it's like, no, you didn't.
You watched a repeat of 6 minutes.
Exactly. You watched selectively edited parts of live streams that made it look really bad and a lot worse than it actually was. And, like you said, that feeling in the air, it was stirring. I mean, the entire day, it was just there, and there was just nothing like it, nothing in comparison. And, that's when everyone's standing there, I remember they were singing the national anthem.
Yep.
And all of a sudden.
What side were you on?
I was on the west side. I was on the west side. So the side that actually was breached initially. That's where the violence took place.
So the Washington Monument's back here, and the Capitol's here. I was on this side. You were on the other side?
I believe so.
So that's the side that got breached first.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's when, where they have the inauguration stage set up. That's where everything was. That's where I was. I think it was on the side of the monument, actually, because I don't remember.
So maybe I was on the west side.
You were probably on the same side.
And again, the fact that I saw none of that, and I was there. I was there earlier than his speech ended. So I was one of the first people.
So I got there, I would say 19 minutes before his speech ended. And that's when the initial...
Not to be exact.
Yeah, well, it was 19 minutes and 54 seconds to be exact. I got that ingrained in there. But because I did a piece for Gateway Pundit, proving that Trump didn't incite it because, he still had 19 minutes and 54 seconds left in his speech when I arrived. And that's when the first barrier was knocked down. But, and that's... Everyone's singing the national anthem. Everyone's being peaceful. I mean, you got flags waving virtually everywhere you look. It was something like I've never experienced before.
Even when it was breached, I remember I was making jokes. I was like, because people were waiting in single file lines
to go in,
to go up, to not just go in, but to go into, but to go up the stairs. Like once it was kind of like they were just
to see it.
And I remember going, do we have to have table reservations? And people were laughing. Like, this was not what anybody thinks it was.
And that's the thing, is it was a laughable environment for the good majority of people that were there.
Yeah.
And, up until the point of where you're standing there, and, I was right on the front line on the west side, and I see this concussion grenade go over my head, and not, on the front line or anything, but deep into the crowd. And that was the very first munition that was thrown that day, and you felt the energy shift. It lands literally in a crowd of women 100%. And little girls. Yeah. That's where this landed. And you see all these men, all the men got to the front. And, then you start hearing F you, and then the bombardment just starts.
There was no reason to throw.
No, there was absolutely no reason. And even, the chief of police for the Capitol Police, he literally said, do not use concussion grenades on this crowd. It was specifically stated not to use these kinds of munitions on this crowd.
Nancy Pants had a drink and goes, throw some concussion grenades.
Throw all of them. Yeah.
Let's rile the bulls
up. And that's exactly what happened. And, upon the first 5 minutes, you had 2 people down. Not a lot of people know this, but Kevin Greason and Benjamin Phillips, I covered this in one of my investigative pieces, 2 years worth of research. They went down within the first 5 to 10 minutes from these concussion grenades being thrown. The police say Benjamin Phillips never even reached the Capitol that day. Little do you know.
Are they the 2 people that passed away?
They passed away, yep. From cardiac arrest, is what that we are told that they passed away from. No, they were hit with concussion grenades and essentially scared to death.
They had heart attacks. I can give you a detail.
Yeah.
So one of our buddies, who was not supposed to be there that day, I won't say his name because he was supposed to be on call. He's a nurse, male nurse. He provided aid to the first guy, and he doesn't know which guy it was, but it was one of the guys that died of a heart attack.
Yep.
And the flashbang went right off, and the guy dropped
right in front of
a
him.
sack of potatoes. Yep. And this is not from a riot. No. This is from an illegal use of force, unfortunately, as a police
Well,
supporter.
And then they lied about it in the coroner's report. The coroner lied through and through
said
on every
trampled?
single person. Didn't even say he got trampled, but said that he died of essentially what is a natural heart attack. And then they said that he wasn't even at the Capitol. Okay, well, where was he? Little do we know, we scrub through hours and hours and hours of video, and they both died a few feet away from each other. And there was a confusion with the EMTs because they had just gone in and picked up one of the people that went down, and then you got people over at the EMT van saying, hey, we've got someone down here. And they're like, no, we just saved him. He's in here right now. They're like, no, there's another person laying down. So it was hectic. I mean, even the EMT personnel had no idea up until it was too late.
And I didn't even, this was only 100 feet from me, and there's so many people, I didn't even know that was going on.
You could be from me to you and not even realize that there's someone dying right next to you. That's how screwed up this was.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. And, and then, of course, they deflected and said, hey, none of this happened. You guys are liars. And what was really gross about it is for Benjamin Phillips and for Kevin Greason, they lied about both of their stories. How old are they?
I'm trying to figure out which one my buddy was trying to help.
They're about the same age. They were in their 40s or 50s, I believe. Yeah. They looked very similar. Were wearing very similar clothes, too. That's what was so hard about us to differentiate who was who. And, then you have the third person. And there goes Ashli Babbitt. I'm inside the Capitol, and she is shot and killed, I would say assassinated, by Lieutenant Michael Leroy Byrd, who was hiding around the corner waiting for her. He claims that he gave her verbal warnings, which is a complete load of crap.
You were inside.
I was the closest to him inside of the speaker's hallway where he shot and killed her. I was no farther from me to you, from Michael Byrd, and the barrier, the panes of glass are broken. So if anyone would hear of a potential verbal warning from Michael Byrd, it would have been me or John Sullivan, who was right next to me. And then next thing you know, Ashli Babbitt is shot and killed, and it's kind of an emotional topic for me regarding that. I've never seen anything like that before. I didn't know what happened at first. I saw the gun, and then I hear John Sullivan yell gun, and then I yell gun, but you're in such an enclosed space with over 100 people, you couldn't hear anything from, the person right next to you. That's as close as you could hear. So from me to you,
she was yelling straight ahead. Yeah. The gun was from the side. She might not have even seen it.
Oh, she had no clue. And then what people don't know and what the details they miss, and I've recovered this, reported on this extensively, is Zachary Alam, the guy that was busting in the windows with his helmet, who was handed to by, we call him Flagpole, hands him the helmet, and he starts breaking the window panes around the officers. Right as the officers are called off and essentially just told to let them get the barrier, the officers shift, okay? And that's when Ashli Babbitt, she was visibly frustrated the entire time, yelling at the cops, demanding, please do something, begging for help, literally asking for them to get back up.
That's right. She was yelling to kind of stop the madness.
She was trying to stop the madness in that room that was being portrayed by Zachary Alam and other rioters on the front row. And I would say actors, because that's what a lot of them are, is a lot of them haven't been prosecuted. A lot of them haven't been named publicly.
So these people in the front have not been prosecuted?
Hardly a single one of them. Yeah, you have Zachary Alam, who was responsible for breaking the windows.
Like families in Texas, a whole family of 5 just got...
they'll get
and
raided.
They've got pictures of them standing like this, and they each got 15 days, and they've been... And again, unbelievable. So you're saying a lot of the people, because you know.
Yeah.
They have
the
not
good
been
majority of the people that were in the room with me that were being violent or that were breaking windows or attacking officers have never even made it. They've either made it onto the FBI wanted list and were taken off, or never even made it there in the first place.
What the fuck?
Exactly. And, this is a common reoccurrence all throughout January 6th with Ray Epps, with the megaphone guy on top of the scaffolding. I mean, this happens over and over and over again. And, Ashli, she grabs Zachary Alam as he's breaking out the window because the cops leave. So she decides it's in her hands at the moment. So she reaches around and grabs Zachary Alam with her right hand, pulls him toward her, and actually hooks him right in the face, knocking his glasses off. And he was about to go through that window pane that she went through. This is about 6 seconds from when she shot. So she grabs him, knocks him down, essentially, and he's fumbling for his glasses, and then she goes through instead of him. Because, and I wish I could ask her, why did you go through? But she was in the Air Force, 14-year veteran. She was a very tactical person.
Yeah.
She, from a tactical mind point or mind stance is, if you go, is it easier to stop a crowd of angry people being on the same side of the barrier with them, or blocking the only entrance from the other side of the barrier where they can't touch you or harm you? And it would be the other side of the barrier. You could push people out of the windows they wanted to come through. And so Ashli Babbitt jumps up, and then she is essentially assassinated by Michael Byrd, who's hiding around a corner. And, I held her while she died. I wish there was more that I could do. I almost feel a sense of like it's my fault, but I know it isn't. I've been beyond blessed to become really good friends, and I would argue family with Ashli Babbitt's family now, which has landed me on a national terrorist registry. I am considered a domestic terrorist because they designated Ashli Babbitt a martyr.
I threatened sitting.
Very dangerous guy, by the way.
Yeah. Are you okay, Joe? Do you feel
you good
safe?
back there?
You're all right? Okay, good.
But they designated Ashli Babbitt a martyr, and now I'm a terrorist because I support a martyr, and I support the family of a martyr because I watched an officer murder an unarmed woman while I held her, and she bled out in my hands.
So I had originally a different thought on when she got shot because I was like analyzing the footage, and I'll get into that. But the Area 52 TV, I think we're about to wrap up. Before we do, we got another 15, 20 minutes. Please follow the rest of the episode at YouTube or any of them. Please share it off there. I don't know how long we'll be on Area 52. So go to youtube.com/C/blunt force discussion. Please share all of our episodes. Help us out. Why not? Do it. Where can we find, what's your handles?
It's at Tayler USA, Tayler USA.
On Twitter and
on Twitter, and then on Instagram, it's USA Taylor because I was banned on January 6th. So
of course you're a dickhead. All right, we'll be right back, guys, and for the rest of the show, come join. Is it what?
Negligent discharge.
So he didn't mean to shoot?
Nope.
Okay, so yeah, so I'm watching this. So I became the Alex Jones in this case. I'm like, she's not dead.
Yep.
She didn't look like she was dead. I talked to other military guys who are like, for that kind of firearm, which was a 45, I think, right?
40. It
was just a 40?
It was a 40.
So they thought there should have been blood spatter. So something didn't match. I looked at the levels. I looked at probably your video. I looked at all. I'm like, there's no way that it should have been there. I did not think she was dead for a long time, and I apologize.
That was actually a lot of people.
But you were there. So
there was a video that came out on BitChute, and it was like everything wrong with the Capitol shooting in 21 minutes.
I watched that one.
A lot of people watched
Hook,
it.
line,
It
and
gained a lot of
sinker.
traction.
And then I asked for other opinions, and some of them.
And it had a lot of good points in it. That what happened in that room was very staged, I will say. From
the
being
cops.
there. The way that the cops were acting.
The ones behind, they look like they were at a movie. They came, and that's my...
Exactly.
So I'll ask you that, like how that theory, what you thought about it when it came out, which I now know, just like Alex Jones admitted guilt. I was wrong. And then second, why is anybody shooting when there's a bunch of cops right behind her? Go ahead.
So, that theory actually gained a lot of traction. And, upon initially coming out, like I was literally, because I was in so much shock. I remember stumbling out of the Capitol after holding Ashli Babbitt, and watching her die. I've never seen anyone die like that before. I stumble a few blocks down. I don't even realize where I am. I look at my phone, it's absolutely blown up. The video had gotten like 3 million views within, under 20 minutes, and my phone just essentially wasn't working because I had so many notifications. My parents are calling me, my girlfriend's calling me, all my friends are calling me because they saw my video that uploaded. I didn't even know it uploaded. I was just stumbling through the streets of DC.
Yeah.
And, that's when I really started, the days following, I was just numb. I really didn't understand what was going on. I went on with Alex Jones, actually, and Schroyer the night of, they were the first ones that kind of got like the in-depth of what happened in that room for me. And, I remember on that podcast, I still had Ashli's blood on my hands. I was so out of it that her blood, literally, I remember talking on the podcast, and, the archives are there somewhere, where I'm having a conversation. I'm talking with my hands because I do it a lot. And I look down and I realize her blood's still on me. And like it kind of kicked me back into reality at that moment. But I would say, it's definitely warranted on the people that said, it was fake. Because it looked like a very weird shooting. And the way that she bled was weird. Everything about it was weird. But it's because it hit her in the anterior shoulder and actually traveled to the other side. So there wasn't an exit wound. The bullet was lodged inside of her, so you didn't see that initial splatter outside. But not a lot of people know.
It didn't hit her in the neck.
It didn't hit her in the neck. It looked like it hit her in the neck, but it was about the anterior shoulder right in this area. So it was right under the neck. And, as we're trying to render aid to her, she has a big scarf on. Okay. So we could not find it. And we're unwrapping her scarf. We're trying to find it. And finally, the medic next to me, finds it, applies pressure to it, and I'm trying to help. Not really, much I could do. I wish I could have done more. But the cops are just standing around.
It's all internal.
Yes, standing around diddling their thumbs, literally, watching as this woman bleeds out on the ground.
Are they even cops, though?
What was that?
Do you think they're cops?
I don't know what they are, but I wouldn't classify them as real cops because a cop is legally, essentially, they have to render aid to someone that they shoot afterwards. And Michael Byrd turned around and ran in the opposite direction and then allowed the CERT team, which is the tactical team that was there with the fully automatic rifles that he said wasn't there in his interviews. So he basically allowed them just to watch her bleed out. And they carried her upside down like a dead dog. When she had a bullet wound to the anterior shoulder, she was still alive. And they carried her down the stairs upside down, which is not how you carry someone with a bullet wound, especially in the upper body.
Yeah,
then the cops contaminated her crime scene on 3 different occasions. The first, a cop comes in and he steps in the puddle of blood, leaves his shoe mark in it, realizes, oh, oops, another cop pulls him out, and then they throw her OB Brewery beanie, because that's what she was wearing in it, who was a regular place with her and her husband in San Diego. And they throw her OB Brewery beanie on top of the pile of blood, and then the guy that was rendering aid to her, which he literally touched her once, shifted her, and made her choke on her own blood, pulled his nylon gloves out and threw them in the puddle. So there was literally no crime scene preserved, and they didn't even treat it like a crime scene. I mean, literally,
they also did not they didn't even have a trial for the.
To put it in perspective, I have never been interviewed or even asked from federal law enforcement, the January 6th committee. I have begged and begged the committee. I have written personal letters to Liz Cheney, to Ben, to all the people on the committee saying, hey, I have evidence that I want to provide. I want to give an eyewitness statement. And they will not talk to me because of what I saw in that room and essentially what I've uncovered in the meantime. I mean, she was the 3rd death that day. I mean, that death will stick for me. It changed my career for the rest of my life. I essentially threw my career in the garbage, donor-wise, everything. Just all the money that I had coming in was DHS, FBI. They liked my work because I covered riots. They weren't allowed to talk about it, but they would donate to me. Next thing I knew, I stick up for this woman who was unarmed and killed in the Capitol, and I'm on a terrorist watch list. All my donations dried up. I'm making no money at all. I'm stranded in D.C. I don't know what to do. And then here comes the FBI, and they just start clamping down. But she was the 3rd person that died that day, and not a lot of people know, the 4th and the last. Brian Sicknick didn't die on the 6th, and it wasn't from what they said, him being his head bashed in with a fire extinguisher.
No, he had a stroke 3 days later.
He had a stroke. And, with
Doctors
the 4th.
found it was unrelated.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and the 4th person that died is Roseanne Boyland. And this is the one that really, really pisses me off out of all of them, is because Roseanne Boyland, she was a recovering addict. She had been sober for years. So it was one of her biggest accomplishments. And she's in basically the rotunda, not in the rotunda, but they're about to go into the Capitol, the tunnel. Yeah. And this is where a lot of the bad clashes happen. But, it's the 7-second selectively edited video from January 6th committee showing people attacking cops. But what they don't show is right before that is you literally have what appears to be lifeless Roseanne Boyland laying on the ground, having officers spray her, push people over her. They're causing a doggy pile that is 10 people deep, and the people that were inside of it that survived, they describe it as the worst experience of their life. They couldn't breathe. Their oxygen was being sucked out of their lungs. They're drenched with mace and Lord knows what else. I mean, they're literally swimming in puddles, on the Capitol grounds. And in this video, it shows, Metropolitan Police Department officer Lila Morris. She's a black officer, diversity hire, to say the least. She had no qualifications to be there that day. And she is essentially beating an unconscious Roseanne Boyland, who had just been trampled because of the police pushing people, beating her lifeless body.
How have you seen that footage?
Over and over again from investigating.
Okay.
And, just beating her over and over and over again. Overhead with this stick, and she's hitting her with her baton, and then someone steals her baton away from her because of what she's doing, and they try attacking her, and then she ends up stealing someone's wooden walking stick, and she's on video going overhead, hitting this woman in the head, in the stomach, over and over again as she's lifeless. And then, you get this new angle from Nick Quested, who conveniently was called for the J6 committee as a journalist, and, she's black and purple. She's literally lifeless, and the officers killed her right there. But then they say, no, it wasn't blunt force trauma. They didn't even say she was trampled. They said that she died in her coroner's report from an acute methamphetamine overdose.
Shut up.
So they said that she died from an amphetamine overdose when all she had in her system that day was a pill of Adderall. I literally had more amphetamines in my system via Adderall, which was prescribed, get it on the record, than she did that day. So if I would have died, if I would have been trampled in a tunnel, they would have said that exact same thing for me.
So what's interesting is one of the guys in prison with in jail with Cash is the one that beat up the cops to protect that
Jake Lang, correct?
Yeah. Is it Jake?
There's a few of them.
There's a couple
that I would classify as heroes.
They're facing, I mean, 10 years.
Yeah,
They're
because
facing real
they
sentences.
refuse to actually show what really happened. And in specific, Jake Lang. I mean, Jake Lang is an absolute hero. I will say it full-heartedly. I will never take that statement back.
Does he have money?
Yeah, his dad does. They've done documentaries, stuff like that.
Okay, I think that's who it is.
Jake saves the man, Philip Anderson. He was holding Roseanne Boylan's hand as she passed away. He felt her take her last breath and her hand essentially release from Phillips, when he was being trampled too, and he accepted death at that moment. Next thing you know, Jake Lang reaches down and pulls him out from this pile. And he didn't just do it to one person or two person. He helped countless people out of what would have been a life or death situation, as we saw with Roseanne Boylan. I mean, he saved people that day from police brutality. And what does he get? He gets a few years in prison for it.
Possibly more. Is he still in the DC?
Yep.
It's got to be him.
He's still in the gulag.
So what's interesting, and you've seen probably more footage than most. I've heard about it because again, I hear it's like torture. These guys see the 17,000 hours that nobody will ever see. So the 3 people that have died are very suspicious. Because one was facing a 6-month sentence, one was facing like a year.
There's over 20 people that have died since January 6th that were in relation to it, but people just don't talk about it.
I just know of 3, and even Cash only knows of 3.
So you have multiple officers and you have multiple people that were protesting that day that died in motorcycle accidents. They shot one of the officers driving in his, grand cherished Mustang, this classic Mustang on basically this over avenue in George Washington. Yeah, same thing, right?
Yeah, right.
He's a hero
at this point.
Yeah, at this point. And he essentially shoots himself in the side of the temple while he's driving in his cherished Mustang, which he wanted to pass down to his children. And, his wife said, he was acting weird. He wasn't supposed to go back into work. But that day, he went back into work after the 6th, shot himself in the side of the head as he was driving his cherished Mustang. I mean, you have deaths like this over and over and over again. You have a villain report, who literally was right next to Roseanne Boylan when she died. And, he goes on vacation just to de-stress. He goes to essentially Alaska just to kind of get all of these things out of his head because he was struggling with what he saw. Next thing you know, friends come in and check on him. He's dead in the hotel bed. So, you have over 20 people that have died, all in suspicious manners, but nobody wants to talk about it.
And I know the ones that were facing trial for, again, maximum 6 months. It just doesn't make sense. They've already served most of it. Some of them have. The big thing about their cases is their cases would require discovery.
Yep.
Nobody wants to show that footage.
No.
How are you still alive, by the way?
I don't know. And I've had a lot of weird things. Yeah. Watch out for the snipers.
Yeah.
No, but I've had a lot of weird things that have happened to me, and I do thoroughly believe that I have been poisoned, and I've talked to this with congressmen. I woke up one day with a prick on my neck, doors unlocked, really weird.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, and next thing I know, I am deathly sick for the next 2 weeks. I couldn't eat anything, couldn't drink anything, couldn't hold anything down. Weaker. Yeah, COVID. I actually took a COVID test, and I was negative, which we all know, because they're so reliable. They pop up positive when you have the flu. So it was obviously not that. And then I went and got my blood work done, and there was essentially something in my blood that they had no idea what the hell it was. So I was like, oh, that's weird. I was probably poisoned. And, I've had tales. I've had people follow me. I've had people ask my family questions, my friends questions. And it's...
So your stepdad was right.
Yeah, Oh, stepdad's right. Here we go. He'll clip this part. But no, is there... they mess with me a lot. They mess with my family a lot, and I am thankful. I think it is a God thing, the reason why I'm alive still. And I'm just glad that I'm able to be alive and tell the truth about what I saw that day, especially about Ashli Babbitt.
Shit. That's a lot. 20 people. That's crazy. Just from my experience, it's just seeing what's going on. It's the greatest lie ever told to our country, not about the election. Because I can talk about the election and tell you that even if I said it wasn't up to snuff, take away the votes, we now have proof that the FBI suppressed the information on Hunter Biden, which is enough to say that it was a fraud.
Oh, absolutely.
Fraudulent election. So there's so many different things.
Be careful.
Be careful. God, I've never heard the 20 stuff. I just know that it's
mind blowing once you hear it for the first time.
Especially as somebody that could be a questionable. When the FBI questioned me, that I loved. First off, I know for a fact that they were looking at my Facebook messages, which is really interesting.
Always.
But they because they knew stuff. But they go. So my company was Be the Change at the time. They're like, is there any way that Be the Change could be labeled a terrorist organization, or you incited violence? It's called Be the Change. Fucking assholes. But I do like the guy from the FBI. I do like the guy that I ended up.
So, it was weird because I only got contacted by the FBI once, never to talk about January 6th, about what I saw, anything of the sort, but he wanted to know about John Sullivan. That's all he wanted. He wanted to set an in-person meeting with me to discuss
That was
John
my next
Sullivan.
question was about the Sullivan brothers.
Yep.
So I know James. I've gotten to talk to James several times.
Let me put it in perspective.
Explain to me the Sullivans.
The Sullivans are a psyop. Okay, they're the ultimate psyop. Is you have their dad, ex-Navy intelligence, essentially creates psyops for a living. Does a great job at it, by the way. And what better way to win, regardless of the side, regardless of which way the political swing is happening in the country, than to have one son who is extremely right-wing, MAGA Republican, hoorah, and then the other son who is straight Antifa BLM, left-wing.
That's John.
That's John. So John's the left winger, and James is the right winger. And then now you have this stark division, but now he's playing both sides. So that's exactly what the Sullivans are. Is they are quite literally just a psyop.
And then they were also heavily, because they were like, one was a speed skater. They were heavily funded.
That was John. Yeah,
John was funded.
John was a speed skater. He was in Uber ads. I mean, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, funded by Romney, from what I understand. All right, we're trying to get through the last part because I wanted. Again, that's my most important thing, the J6 stuff, because being there. Last question about J6, actually. What do you think about the whole J6 commission in a short, concise?
I'll give it to you in 2 words. A scam. It's the only way to explain it. It's a scam. And, I would say, we need to have serious political repercussions for the people that took ahead and went and prosecuted people under this committee because, one, it's an illegitimate committee, doesn't have enough people on it, it doesn't have representation from the right wing or from Republicans. They flat out denied the people that Kevin McCarthy wanted on the committee. This is not an actual committee. This is literally a kangaroo court. This is stuff you would see in the Soviet Union. That's the only way to explain it. It's a kangaroo court. And it has no standing.
All right, so we're talking about Sullivan brothers. We're talking about them being completely separate in this weird, divisive kind of way.
Yep.
And they, James, threw his brother under the bus.
Essentially, yeah.
But is it for a show?
I think it is. And I've talked to John recently, actually. And, he at first was... The thing about John, so... The night of and the few days following the shooting, because he got a really good angle of Ashli Babbitt getting shot, is, he consistently called Michael Bird a murderer. He didn't know his name because I released the shooter's name a month after, but he called the cop a murderer. He said he killed and murdered an unarmed woman. And then all of a sudden the committee gets a hold of him, he's subpoenaed, and he faces charges. And now his, one of his pinned tweets is, Ashli Babbitt deserved it. If you can't see she's a terrorist, I don't know who can.
Shut up.
Yeah,
so that shifted.
You see the shift, right?
So do you have any text from him saying that?
No, it's on his profile. It's literally on.
When he said, it's still up.
Oh, it's still up. Yeah, and he has a few different Twitters, and now he just does remote monitoring of Ukraine, Russia, which is always interesting to me. But no, he's essentially a psyop, man, and he changed his positions on virtually everything on what happened during the day after his video was released, and Jack Posobiec and everyone started really driving the traffic to watch his full video of where he meets up with Jade Sacker, the CNN employee who was his girlfriend at the time, and they say, we did it. And this is on camera, it's on his live stream, and he's on live stream breaking a window, when he initially got into the room, the speaker's hallway, he was telling people that he had a knife, led him to the front. That's literally how he was getting to the front, is telling people that he had a knife on him. He was intimidating people so he could slide up next to where I was. And, it's interesting to me that he was right next to me during the shooting because he's one of the people that I started going undercover, because he has a group called Insurgents USA in Utah. He lives in Utah as well, when I did at the time. And, during the 6th, I still lived in Utah. I hadn't moved out here to Texas yet. And, that's where I started my undercover work, was his group, John Sullivan's group, Insurgents USA. So, and then, 2 days later, I figure out, hey, that's the kid that was next to me inside of the Capitol. It freaked me out. I was like, okay, this is weird.
A little shifty.
Yeah, I was like, there's something going on here. And then next thing I know, I actually reached out to the FBI first because in my mind, I was like, as a credentialed journalist, I have absolutely nothing to worry about, right? And I had a few friends that had talked to him. They're like, dude, it was no big deal, Just tell him the truth. Tell him what you got. And so I reached out to the Utah field office, got connected with an agent. I won't say his name here for privacy reasons. And, he was overall a good agent from what I saw.
Yeah.
And, I'm really in tune with wording and how to word things and, manipulation wise. I'm obsessed with the English language and how to use it and the proper way to use it. And, I've done a lot of research on FBI techniques, CIA techniques. I was really into that. And I get on the phone with him and I was like, okay, I knew going into it he's going to try and get an in-person meeting. So I was like, that's the only thing I can't agree to is an in-person meeting. And next thing I know, he was so good at doing what he did, like I thought I was a wordsmith. Yeah. Not at all, right? At that moment, I'm a 20-year-old kid who thinks he might be a little bit smart and have an edge on an FBI agent. Yeah. No way. Next thing I know, I'm agreeing to an in-person meeting in my house in 25 minutes. And, hang up the phone, and I kind of took a step back, and I was like, he just essentially psychologically controlled me into accepting that meeting right now. They're on their way. I was like, what do? I do not want to sit down and talk to these people because right then I was like, why does he only want to talk about John Sullivan? What are they trying to know to see about what I know? Because I was in group chats with him in the past and they were asking about specific group chats, things like that. And I was like, one, how do they know that I know him like this? And two,
because they're in the group chat.
Why do they want information?
They just need somebody else.
They're probably the ones that created the group chats, to be honest with you. And, then I immediately lawyered up, found me a good lawyer. Thankful to, I was working at Gateway Pundit at the time. And, they connected me with a lawyer. I had them reach out to the agent, cancel the meeting and say, hey, if you ever want to talk to Tayler again, you come to me first. Have never heard from the FBI, anyone within the FBI in an official capacity since then. I've had them essentially try and sting me, try and set me up on multiple occasions in person, try to talk to me.
But you want to speak to the committee. You wanted to
I have no interest in speaking to the FBI because I did nothing wrong and I know
and the
how
FBI
the
was
FBI
involved.
is. Yeah. But I do really have a lot of interest in speaking to the committee, which they have finished it with their grand prize of subpoenaing Trump now. And, we're going to throw Trump in prison. That's what this has all been about this entire time.
It's to affect the election.
Yeah, well, and it's not even that, but you look at, whenever something like this happens, you have to look at the people that benefit most. And it was the national security industry. That's literally what it was. It's the NSA, it's the CIA, it's the FBI. Now you have a national security apparatus. This is what they're going for is they want post 9/11 security bills again. They want things like the Patriot Act. They want to be able to pass this kind of legislation. What they're using to incarcerate these people on January 6th is literally old KKK legislation. Yeah. People don't realize that, but they're literally using them because they're white supremacists. So then they prosecute them under this clause that you can prosecute KKK members under. But not a lot of people understand that.
As we got our black friend in it. So let's really quick shift in our last couple minutes to the child drag shows. That's the hot topic out in Texas.
Hot tamale.
Hot tamale. You've covered almost all of them. That's actually, you met my buddy at one. I was just watching a David Harris video from earlier that was disgusting. It was a new one today. I've been to a drag show before. Have you ever been to a drag show, unlike these, like a real drag show?
Yes.
Like in New York?
Yeah, not intentionally, but yes, okay. on complete accident.
I think they are. So I've been to a couple. Mm-hmm. As I said, I've got some liberal ideologies. I'm cool with it, whatever. But the thing is, the ones that I've been to were always shows.
Yeah,
talented performers. It wasn't
and
about
they were targeted towards adults,
and
too.
they were targeted towards adults. It was comedy mixed with dancing. Yep. It was more of it was a show. These are not that in any way, shape, or form, and they're being done with daylight behind them.
Yep.
What the fuck is going on?
And I wish I could just give you a straight up answer on what the hell is going on here. But this started during Pride Month. That's when I noticed, this is something, the child drag show phenomenon, this is something you would see, like a video come out of California and you're like, yeah, that's really screwed up, but it's California. It makes sense. But, Dallas, Texas is a little bit different than California. Yeah. And, when I first saw it pop up, it was the one that really, kicked everything into motion nationwide about the controversy of child drag shows. This wasn't a thing a few years ago. We hadn't even heard about it. And, then I went undercover at this one called Drag Your Kids to Pride at this gay bar named Mr. Mistress. Literally, yeah.
And I know Mr. Mistress. And, it's downtown.
And, it is classified as a gay bar, so it's a sexually oriented business, which kids are not allowed to be in. And, just to get that out there. And, this first one was probably the worst one that I've covered. Yeah. Honestly. And, this is what really sparked the national outrage, I would say, about child drag shows. And, you had people, the gay bartender asking a child if he was gay next to me, serving drinks over him, alcoholic beverages, and his mom, at least what I perceived to be one of his moms, because he was with 3 women as a little kid, pipes in and says, no, don't let him tell you he's not gay. He actually is gay. He's just nervous, essentially forcing her sexuality on her child. in a public setting with a gay bartender, which is so wrong on so many levels. I don't even have to explain why.
I wouldn't take a kid to a strip club.
No, well, and that's exactly the precedent that needs to be set here. Is you understand, as someone who has been to drag shows, it is adult environment.
Yeah,
at
100%.
all times.
This is one of the biggest issues I have. Like, when I watch what you and Sarah do, and some of the other people, like, this is sick.
Oh, yeah.
And again, as somebody that goes, I've been to an adult drag show, it could be very
It's depraved
entertaining.
and it's intentional.
But yes, and honestly, the crazy thing is the adult drag shows I've been to were not that sexually oriented.
Nope.
It was comedy. There's an overweight guy dressed as a woman twerking around children. It's just stupid.
Yeah, well, and it's not even just, I wish that was like the worst thing that happened at these shows, But I mean, you have the parents that bring their kids into this culture, which not even adults cannot understand this culture. Adults can't understand rationally a man dressing as a woman or a man identifying as a woman that has man parts. I mean, it literally makes no sense. It's one of the, hottest debates right now with the Matt Walsh stuff. What is a woman, right?
Right.
Men can't even, adult humans can't even understand what a man is when he dresses as a woman. It doesn't really make sense to us. Our minds can't really grasp it.
Yeah.
So then you expose children that are under the age of 12, because that's the common reoccurrence at these drag shows, to a man dancing sexually, but he's dressed as a woman, usually in women's clothing. And acting like a woman, acting feminine, saying things that are feminine, but also very vulgar, and being vulgar in front of the children. I mean, how do you expect a child, and this is the precedent that I use for all of it, is I ask the parents that bring their kids to these shows afterwards if their kid still believes in Santa Claus. Does your kid still believe in Santa Claus? Yes, because usually the good majority of them do. Then how can you even justify bringing your child to something that they can't understand? When your kid believes in Santa, but you're going to expose them to a man dressed as a woman who is dancing sexually and saying sexual things directly to children, and you're going to teach your kids how to hand them money, just like you're in a strip club. I mean, I've seen kids throw money.
Which is where they're starting to break the law.
Yeah.
That's actually from a legal perspective, because I talked to Roanoke Police, and you were at the Roanoke Police one, or you were at the Roanoke location one as well. You even got an interview with somebody that was in the. Was she an educator?
Yes, that
and
was.
You were fully like, yeah, we got to let them strip naked, whatever. And you were being funny, but she didn't know. And
she's being serious.
And she was being serious. So that was one of the more telling interviews.
And at the Roanoke one, it was very telling because, in that interview that I had with her in an unreleased portion of it, she had talked about how there was over 15 teachers from the same school district in attendance, which is insane. I mean, the fact that even one teacher that, teaches elementary school and middle school is in attendance at a show like that with her daughter, who now identifies as a boy. She told me that, that her daughter is self-identifying as a male and that she's going to transition when she's 16, which is another topic of just absolute controversy and craziness.
Yeah.
But no, there was multiple teachers there. And, they said that, some of us got pressured and found out, so we had to take down social media posts promoting it. And it's like, you shouldn't be promoting this anyway. Yeah. I mean, these are the type of people teaching your kids. And I don't just say that to be, to stark outrage or anything, or to make things, flammable, because that's what most people in this industry do. Is it's very easy to push buttons and to cause controversy. But this is a very serious issue, is you have these people that are literally bringing children to adult shows where men are dressing like women and parading around being sexual, and they're the ones teaching your kids. They think this should be in the school district. They think, I've talked to multiple teachers where they think drag queens should be able to perform at assemblies at school.
Jesus Christ.
That they're fighting, the teacher that I talked to from Keller ISD, she was fighting, she's on the front lines, she said, of fighting in the libraries, trying to put sexual content and sexually lewd things into our children's books. And we've seen, the national outrage of book banning, stuff like that. It's like, kids should not be reading in middle school or elementary school how to give blowjobs.
It shouldn't make it sound like we're the crazy ones. Be like,
exactly.
Oh, you're trying to burn books. No, it shouldn't even be
no.
We're not trying to get rid of the books.
Children.
Like, let's just push this back to a little bit later in life, like a normal everyday. I mean, do you let the 35-year-old teacher sleep with a 15-year-old student? No, they get arrested. Why Texas is my final question.
I think it's intentional. In June, there was only one or two of these shows. And, after exposing it, after it got a lot of national coverage, Tucker Carlson covered it, the biggest names in media covered it, I think it just blew up. And I think it was intentional from this community, knowing that they can cause controversy and they can almost drive their cause via it being, exposed from inside. So I think they like it, and I've talked to to drag queens that have performed at the shows that I've exposed, and obviously they're all very nasty towards me. They think I'm a transphobe. They think I'm this. They think I'm that. My favorite excuse is, you go undercover at these child drag shows because you're actually closeted. That's the number one thing, or you like kids. They deflect exactly what they're feeling onto you.
So you're saying liking kids is wrong? Okay, then you've just admitted part of the problem.
Exactly. Well, and it is the intentional grooming of our children and of our youth. Is if you can essentially dominate one generation with a specific ideology, you're never going to have to do anything again. That ideology is going to naturally take over through generations, and that's what we're seeing right now. I mean, I think it's like over 50% of my generation, Generation Z, identifies as LGBTQ, which is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
I mean, you have seen that it is essentially a social pandemic that is happening, is being forced down people's throats, the acceptance route and everything that we're going through, is you see the rates that it's gone up since, the boomer generation and the baby boomers, everything that comes with it. And it's just a constant skyscraper.
And then now it's
blowing up.
Now it's shooting.
It's like the cool thing to do is being, a part of this community.
Which is actually similar to abortion, and that's where we'll end. And the weird thing with this is, again, I'm not a full pro-life.
Yep.
I'm far from pro-abortion. I think there's a different thing. I don't want to impress I don't want to know what somebody else is going through. And that's kind of my libertarian Christian side. And I know it sounds weird to say Christian. It's like, I don't want to judge somebody. I don't think it's right, but it's not birth control, but whatever. But when it comes to it, we were talking about. How did I lose my train of thought?
Baby lives matter.
Baby lives matter. But we were talking about the correlation between the two in
it's a cult.
Trag. Oh, that's what it was. Sorry. There was a girl. Sorry, I jogged my mind there. There's a girl that I'd heard a story of that was in the process of, she's pregnant, she was young, she was excited to have the child, and then all of a sudden it became cool to have an abortion.
Yep.
And all of a sudden she's like, I want an abortion. Mm-hmm. And 4 months before, 5 months before, now she's looking at a late-term abortion, 4 or 5 months. It was because now, and she's got Black Lives Matter as her, that's her friends. We know what her crew is. Now she is along the lines of, well, I feel like she's been pressured to go, this is what girls have to do. Well, and that's the problem.
And that's what I really disagree with the abortion industry. And not just killing babies, obviously, I disagree with that.
Yeah.
But the forcing people into it and the pressure. It's a social stigma, it's a social pressure that's become so popularized to kill your baby instead of raise a beautiful child that has literally nothing to do with your mistakes. Whether, people argue for rape exceptions. You're probably, the exception under rape, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, I completely disagree with it because you look at statistically is, the debates that I've been in, the easiest debates to ever win are the pro-life versus pro-choice arguments because 99% of pro-choice arguments are based in opinion. That's what it all is. But, the pro-life arguments are based in facts. It's based in biology, based in science. When does it start? Conception, things like that. And, with the pro-choice stance, it really... it's a shame. It's exactly what's really happened with the whole BLM stigma, right?
Yeah.
Is you either comply and you support abortion, or you're not one of us. You're disgusting. You're a fascist, is what you usually see, and that's not really how it is at all. Is the good majority of Americans do agree that people should have access to some form of abortion, but early term abortion. Usually, the wide agreement is the heartbeat bill, which I'm even more extreme than that because of what I've seen. I've at abortion clinics personally.
Yeah.
The research I've done is it's very popular just to get rid of your child.
Yeah.
And it's a shame,
So by the way, I'm not a rape and incest situation guy. Because to me, then the argument goes, well, look at it like this. If you're talking about the life of a child, if
Why
you're
are they
pro-life, it's got nothing to do with that.
Yep.
I'm more of a heartbeat to 8 week.
Yeah,
Again, it is a gray area. You make a decision, as hard as it is, it should not be celebrated. I don't want to know what's going on in this woman's life that got her to that point. That's where my belief is. But the argument on pro-lifers that say, the pro-life argument, I should say, that says, well, in the case of rape and well, that you just
prove your own stuff.
You contradicted the point a little bit. So, and again, I've grown very fond of the pro-life argument on this one based on seeing the insanity of the other side.
Live action is an amazing source to get. I'd say it's the best source to get pro-life stuff from. Information that was factual, that isn't opinion based.
Yeah.
But my favorite thing about really getting in heated arguments. And this is one thing I miss, just being a journalist, right?
Yeah.
Like being an activist before I was a journalist, you go in the streets, you get in people's faces, and you push back on them. You can't really do that as a journalist now. But with the pro-choice community, is what I'll call them, or just pro-abortion, because they are blatantly pro-abortion nowadays. It used to be we want to be able to get an abortion. It's not a good thing. We don't view it as a good thing, but now it's turned into a cult.
Yeah.
I mean, they love it. They brag
got
about their
cakes
abortions.
about it. They're
Exactly.
like, oh, celebrate this.
Bake me a gay abortion cake, stuff like that, But my favorite thing about debating with them about their side is I call it the under 1% rule, okay? Because, the things that they now argue for is rape exceptions, incest exceptions, all the above. And all of those things, the rapes that equate to pregnancy, the incest that equates to actual pregnancy, it's all under 1%. I believe it's like 0.6%, of what actual people get abortions for.
Yeah.
And it's all convenience. I mean, that's what all the abortion's for. And I don't think you should be able to, punish an unborn child that's honestly the most pure thing in this world, on this entire planet, that has never, committed a sin, never done anything negative to anybody, for the mistakes of the parent, because you weren't responsible, you didn't track your cycles, and everyone's like, oh, get on birth control. Stay the hell away from birth control. Birth control is terrible for you. It's ruined generations of women, in my opinion. I mean, the hormones are out of control. But not a lot of people know is you can literally time cycles, natural cycles. Women, you can have sex with, your significant other, whatever, without protection. You can, to be kind of blunt about it, you can, ejaculate inside of your wife or your girlfriend, and they will not get pregnant if you understand how to time their ovary cycles and what actually goes with it. But now, it's just convenient to, oh, look, I made a mistake, I'm pregnant, now let's go to the abortion mill and get it done.
I will say cycles are imperfect as well.
Yeah, of course, they're always imperfect.
Especially with all the chemicals we put in our body from everything, it affects that. I like your viewpoint on it. I always like the younger people that have the pro-life argument because they're they're oddly more passionate.
Oh yeah, and I was an accident too.
Yeah,
just to throw that out there,
I want to wrap it up here. Last thing, do you think Beto's got a chance against Abbott?
I do, because of how much we've screwed the grassroots organizations here in Texas, and not just that, but because of how weak Abbott is I absolutely despise Abbott. I think Abbott is a do-nothing governor. I mean, same with Ken Paxton. I think he's terrible doing his job. I mean, he doesn't even realistically have a job because he does absolutely nothing for the state of Texas or his constituents. I do think Beto has a chance, and it's scary because you see the overwhelming support of him. He does hold rallies. This isn't any Joe Biden basement rally where you have 6 people. No, you have thousands of people show up, and you have the door knockers. One of my friends, Alex Rosen, he does the predator poachers. He goes undercover and catches pedophiles as pedophile stings. He actually released a video recently where he is door knocking with the Beto team, and they're hitting old people's homes. So they're literally going to people with dementia. And in this video, the Beto representative is saying, yeah, you want to fill out all D's, all for Beto. Beto O'Rourke's the person you want to vote for. And he goes, oh, okay, he's not even in his right mind, but they're hitting these places. This is something that Republicans don't do. They're not stupid. They understand how to do grassroots. I mean, they understand how to bring in votes, and people should understand this by now, but apparently we don't. But I do think Texas is going to be in trouble the next few years.
I agree. I still think Abbott's going to win. I don't think it's going to be that close.
I think he'll win, but I think it's going to be by a hair.
And also, we have a whole lot of illegal voters. We didn't even get to the border stuff. We'll talk about that another time. Hopefully, I'll have you back on. I had fun talking. Final things, where can people find you?
You can find me at Tayler USA. It is Tayler USA. I almost spelled my own name wrong.
Yeah, it happens.
It happens, right? It's what happens when you have a rare
He couldn't
name,
find his way back from the bathroom.
Exactly. So. Yeah, we had a little struggle sesh.
Good thing he didn't join the military. That Compass whole thing.
Yeah, that would have been a little bit of a tragedy. But no, you can find me at Tayler USA on Twitter, and then USA Tayler on Instagram, and Tayler USA. In my Twitter bio, it's got my link tree. You can go and read my articles. I recommend the 5 death article, what really happened on January 6th. It'll give you the whole breakdown on all 5 deaths, including what happened to Officer Sicknick.
Who are you working for right now?
I'm completely independent.
Completely independent? Yep. Do you live on a street corner?
I do.
Okay,
yeah.
well,
I turn tricks for, journalism money. What can you do?
But he plans the cycles just right so
exactly.
guys don't get pregnant, because guys can get pregnant.
Yes, they can.
world is so weird. All right, guys. We'll see you next time on Blunt Force Discussion. Thanks for joining. As always, please support us. Patreon.com/Blunt Force Discussion. Patreon.com/Blunt Force Discussion. If you like the gear, as always, and you get the BFD hat, by the way, that is not on the website. That's only for big effing deals that are on the show. Are you gonna do it to the hair? God, you just squished it all down.
Do it to the hair. Look at that.
Love it. Love it. He's also got the Awake Not Woke hat. It fits his brand, definitely. So hopefully we'll see you guys on next week's episode. AwakeNotWokeStore.com. Use Awake for 15% off. He flashed it real quick. Take it easy, guys.